My name is Mark Lesnick. I run iDate. We're doing an interview for both iDate and Online Personals Watch. And today we have Wayne May, the founder and CEO of Scam Survivors. Wayne, thanks for being interviewed.
You're welcome.
Kind of help us out. What is Scam Survivors?
Scam Survivors is a site that helps people who are the victims of online scams. We cover everything: 419, romance, blackmail, dying widow scams, pretty much anything that where somebody would receive an email in some way, shape or form where the end game of the scammer is to get money off the person. So we get out as many details as we can about the scammers, and also we help the people who are being scammed, explain to them the things that they can do, the people they can contact, the steps they can take to stop it happening again. So we have a forum, we have a live help room as well, where people can come in and we can give them one-to-one advice. And we also have a gallery where we put up a rogues gallery, basically, of all the scammers' photos used, all the documents that they've got. So we watermark all them so they can't be used again. So it's basically somewhere for people who are the victims of online crime or think that they may be about to be the victim of an online crime, where they can come for help and advice.
Okay. How long has the site been around?
The site itself has been around for just over 2 years. We started in March of 2012, but myself and the moderators were around a lot longer. We were on various other sites before that, and I've been doing this for around 8.5 years. Carrie-Ann Liebling has been around for 3.5 years. Slap Happy, one of our moderators, has been around for about 8 years. So we didn't just set up the site not knowing what we were doing. Just, decided one day, let's set up a site. We all have a long history in dealing with scammers.
So then two questions. Number one, how many moderators are there? And the second one is, well, if you're saying there were other sites, then what was the point? Why Scam Survivors? What was wrong with the other sites that wouldn't work?
Well, there are 2 administrators and 3 moderators on the site. So it's a very small site, but it's also a very close-knit site. I'd say we all have a long history with each other, so we're able to work together really, really well. As for the other sites, there's no issue per se with the other sites. It's just that I'd spent 6.5 years purely dealing with romance scammers, and I wanted to expand my horizons. So it seemed like a good time as any to set up my own site.
Approximately how many people are users of the site right now in terms of what I don't know what you call them. You wouldn't call, you just call them people, members. I wouldn't call them necessarily victims.
Members.
Right?
Yeah. We have around 3,400 members, and we have around 5,500 to 6,000 people a day visit the site as well.
And it's a free site to be a member of.
It's a completely free site. I'd say our logo is free, non-judgmental help and advice for those who have been scammed. So, there's no issue at all. We don't charge money for anybody who comes there. We will, spend hours talking to you if you need it. We do have a donate button if you wish to donate, but we won't treat you any differently if you don't donate.
So for you and for the other moderators, how much time each week do you put into this?
A lot. I can wake up, come onto the forum and be there until I go to bed, quite often. It can easily be a 12, 14-hour day.
Okay. And in terms of, it's a site that's not a revenue-producing site. That's not what it's for. So.
No. We make enough money to pay the bills. And that's pretty much it. It's never been about making money. It's about helping people. So as long as the bills are covered, we're happy. If the bills aren't covered, I'll pay it.
Just out of curiosity, if whether it's the dating industry, other industries were looking at sponsoring, would that be something you'd consider or no?
I don't know. It's kind of a difficult question, because if we had, for example, if we had a dating site come to us and ask us, if they could sponsor us, and then somebody went to that site and they were scammed, it would come back to us. So we have to be very, very careful with what we do.
I guess
we have a few. Yeah, I say we have a few sites
that offering that right away. Yes.
Yes, and I say that's the problem. You have to be so careful, because if they do get scammed because they went somewhere that we recommended, they're going to come back to us about it. So I say there are a few sites, mainly kind of other anti-scam sites, that we will say, are our friends, but we don't have any links to any dating sites. We do have a link on Chatroulette, but it is purely a one-way thing. They have a link to us. We don't have a link back to them.
So there are like romance scams, and then there are other forms of scams out there for other businesses. Can you give me sort of like in a nutshell, what are the big ones that you handle?
The main one that everybody knows is the 419, where you'll get an email saying, I have this money for you. If I send it to you, you are going to need to send me money first to pay fees, bribes, whatever. So this is the typical one. The typical one is the 419 scam that everybody knows.
How did it become 419? What did the 419 mean, actually?
There's a section in the Nigerian laws, and it's section 419, that says that you are not allowed to try to get money off other people through sending them emails asking for money for fraudulent reasons. So it's a 419 scam because it's section 419.
So you have 419 scam, you have romance scams, and what else?
We have a lot of blackmail scams lately, and I mean a lot. We've dealt with probably 5,000 or 6,000 of these in the past 2 years, and that is where somebody will go onto a dating site, a social media site, a cam site, get the person to come off that site with the offer of a naked video, basically, and they get this person naked, usually a young male, but we've seen older males, we've seen it happen with females as well. And then they will record that video, play it back to them and say, if you don't send me this much money, I'm going to send it to all your friends, all your family. So that's the big one that we deal with lately.
How did you personally get involved in this, protection of scams?
Well, back in 2005, I discovered scam baiting, which is where you pretend to be a victim, reel a scammer in, waste their time, waste their energy, and if you're lucky, you can get them to do some silly things. My specialty, as I say, was the romance scam, and I would get them to pose with underwear on their head, hold up silly signs, sing songs. So I started doing that, and there were very, very few people at the time who were actually dealing with the romance scammers. So people were coming to me saying, can you help me with this scammer? My brother is being scammed and I need proof that it is a scammer, or I've been scammed and I want some form of revenge. I know it's not a good idea for me to try to do it, so could you make them look silly? So it started there. I started talking to more and more people who had been the victims of the scams rather than the scammers themselves. So it was about 6 months to a year into my baiting life that I had this kind of change of focus where it became more about helping the people than messing with the scammers for my own amusement. So I was offered a moderator place on a forum. I went there and I became a moderator, then I became an administrator. I was on another site and the same happened there. I was a moderator, then an administrator. So all my time then was being dealt, all my time was being used actually talking to the people who've been scammed. We still do a little bit of baiting purely for our own amusement and to blow off some steam at the end of the day, because dealing with these people who think their lives are over, think that they're going to lose everything, it's incredibly stressful. So we'll call up a scammer at the end of the day and just do something silly just to have a bit of fun and wind down. But as I say, the main focus became helping the people who'd been scammed.
But most of the romance scams now are, more financial related, though.
So yeah, there are two things. There's catfishing and scamming. Catfishing is when they do the same kind of thing as romance scamming, but there's no money involved. It's purely to mess with a person. There's been a lot of high-profile cases of it. As I say, these could happen where somebody in your own town is doing it to you. The romance scams tend to be from certain areas. There's usually West Africa, Malaysia, Russia, and the Ukraine. And each of these places have their own kind of scam as well. For example, the Ukrainians would have a translation agency scam. The scammer would say, I need money to pay for the translation agency that I'm using to translate our letters. If you can't pay this, then we can't speak anymore. Then you would get the Russians who would supposedly fall in love with you, ask to come and visit you, and then ask you for money for the visa, their passport, the plane fare, whatever. And then the West Africans, they could ask for absolutely anything. And I mean absolutely anything. I had one once ask me for $50 to buy tampons for the month. So it can be, absolutely crazy. You never know what they're going to say.
Okay.
The Russians, the Ukrainians, they've got that script. But the Nigerians tend to make things up on the fly. The ones from the Ivory
saying
Coast.
This is to mess with people, but still there's a financial goal at the end.
Well, the catfishing is to mess with people. It's a different thing. It could be, I'd say, it could be a neighbor doing it to you. It could be, if you have a daughter or a son, it could be somebody in their class doing it. Just, to mess with them. There's nothing financial to be gained in it. It's almost like a feeling of power and one-upmanship on the other person.
Okay.
But we don't really deal that much with those because there's no money involved. So people tend not to come to us over it. We have had one or two, but really not that many. The main thing is that the romance where there is money involved.
Give me an idea of some of the other moderators. Like, what are their backgrounds? We understand yours, that you got into this, through experience, basically. How about other moderators as well?
Well, Slap Happy was on the same dating site as me, and we were doing podcasts, online radio podcasts, and I was just a listener of it at the time. So was Slap Happy, and this was about 8 years ago. I started doing more work with the podcast, and we met through that. We realized we had the same sense of humor, started doing a lot of things together, and when I set up the site, he was there straight away, absolutely no problem. I'm willing to go wherever you are, basically. Carrie-Ann Liebling was a romance victim. She was scammed around 3.5 years ago. Did a lot of research on scammers, found me, found the site that I was on at the time, and then came to me asking for help and advice. We developed a good friendship. We've met each other in real life now, and it'll be the second time we've met when we go to the iDate conference. So there's that. We also have Big Al, who again comes from a baiting background. Same site as the one that Slappy and I met. He came in a bit later through the friendship that he had with everybody, because there's a very close-knit community. So people tend to go, I'd like to help you if I can. So he came to us, and he deals a lot with Senegal scammers who pretend to be in a refugee camp. And what he does is persuade them to hand over.
Internet.
Yeah, oh yes, it's internet and everything, yes.
Okay, refugee camp where there's internet. Let's start with that.
Every refugee camp apparently has the internet. So, yes, and you see them, they use the same scripts, and the scripts are really funny when you read them, because it's always, I'm at the Reverend Father's house, but we're not sleeping together. So, it's very silly, but what he does is get them to hand over the bank account that they're using, and then we have a place where we can report these to the actual banks, and if they've proven to be used for illegal, if they've proven to be used for illegal purposes, the bank will shut them down and seize the funds that are in them. So we have that, and then we have New Light, who was a blackmail victim. Came to us on Scam Survivors, we sorted him out, got him all recovered, and he decided to stay and help and became a moderator.
Okay.
So that is the small group of 5 of us.
In terms of the victims, or maybe you can give me some success stories where you actually did prevent scams from the people that came to you early. Do you have any romance scam stories where you were able to save people? Because often they find you after they've already been scammed.
Yes. A lot of people come to us, they panic, and they start searching like crazy, find us, and they come and they say, I paid $500, I sent it through MoneyGram, and the first thing we'll say to them is, check to see if it's been picked up. And if it hadn't been picked up, cancel it. So we've had numerous times that that's happened. The scammer hasn't picked the money up yet. The person's been able to cancel that money, and the scammer hadn't got it. So we've managed to save tens of thousands of dollars that way, just by them doing the search, finding us, and us saying, check to see if that money has been picked up yet. But there was one particular story that was a romance victim a number of years ago now. He was a victim. He did send money, but he came to the site I was on. We helped him. And then he messaged me about 2 months later, and he said, "You're not going to believe what's just happened." His son was selling, I think it was a bike or a quad bike or something like that on eBay, and a scammer had contacted him. It was going to be what's called an overpayment scam, which what they do, say the bike or whatever was worth $500. They say, "I'm going to send you $1,000. Can you send the other amount to this other company who are going to ship it for me?" Well, of course, that company doesn't exist. The money they've sent is either fake or stolen. So the person gets this fake check going to the account, or what they call flashing an account, where they make it appear as if the money has gone in. They take that money out, and his son was just about to go and pay this money into the Western Union, and he literally managed to stop him at the door, just minutes from going in to pay this money. So because this person had been scammed, knew what a scam was about, saw the signs of his son being scammed, he managed to save his son from being scammed as well.
I mean, I haven't gone through all the pages of scam survivors, but I imagine
there's a lot there.
Volumes and volumes of information of various techniques and methods. In terms of how you identify the fraudsters in advance, is there a way for someone who's dating or someone who's on a dating site can check with your site in advance, "Hey, I'm talking to this person, claims to be from New York City or wherever they are," to sort of ensure that they're not in your, if you have like a database of fraudsters or something like that I can cross-reference against?
We have a search facility. People can go to the search, type in the name, the email address, or use things like Google or Google Images, pull the image across or the email address or a part of that person's message. Because these scammers use scripts a lot, you'll find that if one has posted it, maybe another 50, 100, 1,000 have posted the exact same thing. A perfect example of this would be, there's a dying widow scam where they use this, there's a mistake in it, where it says it has defiled all forms of medical treatment rather than defied. So if somebody read that and thought that's a bit of an odd phrase, and Googled it, then they'd be able to find sites like Scam Survivors. One with romance scams would be the Senegal scammers again, the refugee ones. They would type "love matters a lot in life," but it's ALOT rather than a space lot. So you see these things, you can pick these up. I say Google them, do a search on the site. And there are ways to just educate yourself on how they work anyway. For example, a lot of these romance scammers do come from West Africa, and they have a particular way of speaking. They would say "am" instead of "I am," or "the only child of my parents," rather than "an only child." So we have a list of these things on the site in the romance section of the forum. We actually have a thread explaining all these things. Look for things that are too good to be true. If you're a 5 in a scale of attractiveness, if somebody who's a 9 or a 10 is suddenly saying how good looking you are, you should be suspicious. Look for people who have the wrong details. For example, there's a slide that I'll be showing at the iDate conference where somebody claims to be an ebony, supersized, big-breasted woman, and it's a thin Caucasian lady. So the picture and the script doesn't match up because they've used that script elsewhere, found some pictures they prefer, put them in, and haven't changed that script. Or you might see, sorry.
But have you found, let's say, over the last 10 years you've been, or 8 years you've been doing this? I mean, they've gotten more sophisticated, right? They've got, for the most part, the scam.
Not necessarily. A lot of them are still using the same scripts, the same techniques. Some of them have become more advanced, more educated, but the vast majority of them are still doing the same thing they were doing when I started doing it. So it's easy to swap because they've been doing it for that long.
In terms of romance scams, both myself and a few other people in the industry know that the scammers, for the most part, are in certain localized areas.
Yes.
For example, you mentioned Nigeria and Ukraine and Russia. Is that still the case? That's how it started, I guess. Is it still the case that the majority are in these areas of the world, and what areas are they?
The romance scammers are still in Nigeria, Ghana, Ivory Coast, Russia, the Ukraine. They've started moving to other places as well now. They tend to be Nigerians who've gone to these places on student visas, and rather than studying, they just scamming there instead. Places like Malaysia, for example. And then, as they were seeing with the blackmail scams now, the Philippines has become a major hotspot for blackmail scams, and Morocco. Philippines used to be romance scams, and it was a different kind of scam to the others. You'd actually have a female would appear on webcam, would flash a smile, say, "You're my boyfriend, can you send me some gifts?" And then when you log off for them, they'll go talk to somebody else, flash the same smile, "You're my boyfriend, can you send me gifts?" So that stopped, and the blackmail scams took over instead. And instead of it being the females doing this now, it's the males doing it. But that's the only major change that's happened.
But are you seeing any other interesting trends that you're seeing with regards to the scamming in terms of like whether it's technology or methods or anything like that?
We are seeing more of them use bank accounts these days. It used to be it was always send me money through Western Union
Yes.
or MoneyGram, but now it's starting that they will use a bank account, which is why we try to get those bank accounts off them to report them, get them shut down, freeze those assets. So I'd say that there aren't that many changes really in what they're doing. You get one or two will come up with a new idea, but for 95% of it, it's the same as it always has been.
Is there anything in particular that you're seeing on romance scams that are really alarming to you? In other words, something that you see coming on the horizon that you go, "Oh, this is going to be real trouble."
The big thing is going back to the blackmail scams again. The Moroccans and the Filipinos tend to be fairly quick. They'll deal with 20, 30 people a day. But we are seeing people from Russia and West Africa using it now. And they are a lot more tenacious. They will keep at you and keep at you rather than, okay, they're gone, let's just move on to the next person. So the Russians have the technology, the West Africans have the stubbornness. So them finding this thing now with the technology to record and do these quick scams, they do tend to go a lot harder than the Moroccans and the Filipinos. So that's the biggest worry we have, is that when they start doing it a lot more than they are now, the advice that we're giving to people now is not going to work anymore.
You lost me there. The advice that you're giving now won't work because why?
Yeah, because when we say block the scammer for 2 weeks, that's fine. It works for the ones that are doing it now. But when you have people from West Africa, they are going to wait for you to put that Facebook account back on, and then jump on you again. So the techniques that work now, that work because we know they do a lot of people in a very short time, isn't going to be effective because the methods used by the West African scammers are different. They're more used to doing a long scam. Some of them could scam somebody for weeks, months, years even, before asking for money. So there's that willingness to carry on rather than just go, okay, they've gone, who's next?
There's an African expression, by the time you learn the rules of the game, the players have left. First is my understanding of almost all of these scams that take place, especially on dating sites, is the scammer approaches the victim, and the first thing they want the victim to do is communicate off the site. That is, whether it's Skype or email directly or anything like that, but no longer on the dating site. Is that still the case?
That's still the case, yes. What they do is they will message a whole group of people, mass message people, and they know that that's going to be flagged up as odd behavior or inappropriate behavior, and a lot of the dating sites will shut them down. So what they do is they will write to everybody they can as quickly as they can, saying, I really like your profile, I'd like to talk to you, I'm not on this site that often, or I've decided I'm going to leave this site, but I'd still like to talk to you. Can we talk on Yahoo Messenger instead, or can we talk in Skype instead? So in that first email, you're getting the email address from them or the Skype name.
A lot of dating sites still are not flagging that, the fact that they're typing in Yahoo Messenger or Skype or something like that on the first message. If I ran a dating site and I saw Yahoo Messenger or IM or Skype, I mean, that would immediately get a flag, especially if you're doing that all again and again.
Yeah. What a lot of the scammers will do is try to hide it. And they would put the name and they'd break it up with spaces or dots, just so it wouldn't be picked up by conventional methods. If you looked at them individually, you'd be able to see them. But obviously, the dating sites don't have the time, and they certainly don't want to go reading people's messages. So, you know, if anybody's got automated settings in place to stop this, they get around it that way. For example, they may spell Yahoo as Yahew. So when they're looking for Yahoo, it's not seeing it because it's spelled differently.
Right.
So you'll see them get around it that way. But some of them aren't too bright and will put it hidden and then put it in plain view straight after. Okay. So, you know, this is, I'd say, one of the signs that you'll see that it's a scammer. Because we have a list of things where we want to say, if they do this, they're a scammer. If they do this, that's one part of the jigsaw. If you can get a few pieces of that jigsaw, it makes the picture of a scammer. So I'd say one of them is trying to hide that email address, trying to get them off the site straight away, the language they use, the photos. Some of them will put up 2 photographs and they will be of 2 completely different people. And yet both photographs are supposed to be them.
In terms of scams from these dating sites, so we learned that the dating site serves basically as a gateway. From there, the scammer then moves on to other forms of communicative tools, not necessarily the chat through the dating sites or the message to the dating sites, but wants to communicate from other places. Have you seen any cases where the dating sites themselves, like the scammer just used the dating site fully through, straight through the whole process, stayed on the dating site, was able to conduct a scam through there, or no?
Very, very rarely. As I say, their whole script is to get the person away from the site, and then they can control them because they have them an instant message. You know, most people will run their instant messenger constantly, so they're able to constantly message them, keep them sleep deprived, keep them away from their friends, from their family, and basically groom them. It's been described as like being groomed. So on a dating site, you wouldn't really be able to do that. So they want that instant messenger so they can contact them constantly. The same with trying to get their phone number. And they'll bring the person up at all kinds of ungodly hours. Just to keep them, you know, tired, not thinking straight, not able to talk to friends or family. Because if they talk to somebody else, that person might say, hang on, that sounds like a scam to me. So they want to keep them as isolated as possible.
So in other words, at the beginning, there's some sort of romantic kind of attractiveness that they're pushing forward, and then after that, there's problems in their lives and things like that that they want to push upon the victim, so that way the victim worries about that all the time. Is that the strategy?
Yes, some of them do. We have ones who will claim to have been mugged or run over and is now in hospital. When they finally go to visit the person, they say, okay, I've got this money on me, or I've got diamonds on me that I'm going to bring across, cash in, we can buy our dream home. And then they get arrested at the airport for having too much on them. They've claimed that their son or daughter has been taken ill. They can't get money to pay for their treatment. And they'll actually contact the victim as the doctor as well. And they'll even write to the victim as the child, which is something I find particularly horrible. You know, to pretend to be a child as part of this scam. So yeah, there are all kinds of reasons they come up with, but those are the usual ones. They get mugged, they get run over and they're in hospital, they've got arrested. If they are in charge of a company, they're unable to get their funds at that moment, and they need to pay for the materials or pay their workmen, and they can't do that. So they say, you know, can I borrow some money off you? I promise I'll give it back to you. Sometimes I promise I'll give it back to you and some more because you've been so good to me.
In terms of
So-
the sums that you see here, I mean, is there, I mean, I imagine it runs the gamut. I've heard it runs the gamut. I mean, Tim Ford from the Serious Organized Crime Agency and Monica Whitty from University of Leicester presented at iDate in 2012 in Cologne. I mean, they showed us cases where, some of these sums go into the hundreds of thousands of pounds that people have given away of their own personal savings. But I mean, is there a range that you see that most of these scams sort of fall upon? Because you're seeing more.
It could be anything. It could be a few £100s. We know one person who was on our site who sent $250,000. We know of another person who we were contacted about by a newspaper for a comment on the story, and he'd sent $1.2 million to the scammer. So it could range anything from a few hundred to hundreds of thousands, even in the millions. The typical amount would be in the thousands, maybe 20 to 40,000 would be about average. But I'd say it can swing wildly one way or the other.
And these amounts, you're saying $20,000 to $40,000, just to give it as an example. I mean, is that all generally at one time? Is it slowly growing over time? In other words, hey, I need $100, I need $500, I need $5,000. Is that how it works? Or
yeah, they'll start off with a small amount. Maybe, I can't pay for my bills. I can't pay for my food this week because it's an issue with the bank at the moment. Can you send me maybe $50? And then once my money has gone through properly, I'll send it back to you. So the person sends that. Now they know they've got that small amount. So now they'll try for a bigger amount. So it'll be my money still hasn't gone through and now I need to pay my rent, which is $500. And they'll keep on upping the ante and basically trying to milk the person for as much as they can. They literally see the person as nothing more than a living, breathing ATM machine. They want as much money as they can. Even when the person's given them everything they've got, they could then try to get them to become a money mule, send out fake checks, or they say, I finally got the money coming through. Can I have it sent to your bank and then will you MoneyGram it to me or Western Union it to me? And what they're doing, they're dealing with another victim and they've asked them for money. That person sends the money, but not to the scammer, to the other victim, to the original victim. Then that victim sends the money to the scammer. And when that second victim realizes they've been scammed, the only person they can trace it back to is this other victim. So they become a mule. And we do know of cases where people have been arrested and jailed for that.
Have you ever met any of these scammers in person?
I haven't, no. I've met victims, but never any scammers.
Okay. Any of the moderators?
No, none of the moderators have. I know we do have a member on the site who has met scammers, who's a lady who lives down in the southwest of England, and she was a romance victim. The scammer did the usual thing where he's just about to fly out and something happens, he can't go. So then they actually get the scammers to do what's called a black money scam on her, where he says, what I've done, I've got some business contacts of mine are going to come and they've got this money. But what I've done is I've dyed the money black so nobody can steal it. It's a well-known scam, but this was a bit of a twist on it because it's normally it's money going from the Federal Reserve to be burnt. It's old money. They mark it so it can't be stolen. So in this case, it was, this is my money. I've done this to protect it. And she actually met 3 of the scammers in a hotel in Manchester. And they showed her the money, they showed it going through the cleaning materials, and then they said, okay, we've only got enough of the liquid here to do a small amount. Your boyfriend has said that he will give you the money back if you give us the money to pay for more liquid to clean the rest of the money. So she was caught in that scam as well. Okay. And another thing that happened to her as well was another trick that the scammers will often use. When a person realizes they've been scammed, you say, yes, look, I admit I was trying to scam you, but I've fallen in love with you now. I confess to start off with, it was about the money, but now I love you and I want to be with you. So they throw the person again. It's gone from, okay, that person's a scammer, I know it's a fake identity, to, okay, well, he's admitted it now. Not thinking that he's only admitted it because you've confronted him with it. He's admitted it, and yes, he still does love me. And these people fall for all these words that the scammers are saying.
Yes.
Because the scammer can promise you the sun, the moon, and the stars, because they have no intention of ever giving it to you. It becomes a perfect relationship, because whatever you want, they say, I'm going to give you that. Whereas in a real life relationship, that doesn't happen.
Yeah, again, Monica Whitty had mentioned some cases where they went with the police to some victims, showed them the evidence and said, look, this person is not this person lives in Nigeria, this is where they are, this is who they are, this is who they scammed. And the victim just refused to believe it, absolutely refused, and would continue to pay whatever sums they wanted to pay to, continue to be a victim.
Yeah.
Cause
they get so caught up. Yeah, so they're so caught up in the story and so caught up in the lie, they can't see the truth. They can't see the woods for the trees. They are so convinced.
What can the dating industry do more of?
Get the word out. That's the main thing. Educate people. And people are being scammed because they're not aware how the scams work. If the dating industry was transparent about the fact that there are scammers, because some of them will try to bury their head in the sand and claim, no, we don't have any scammers. If they said, yes, okay, there are scammers out there, some of them will try to come to our site. Here's what you need to look out for. These are the signs. If you see a scammer, let us know. And then rather than just deleting that account if they do realize it's a scammer, get those details out. I say what I'd like, and I know what Carrie Ann would particularly like, is some kind of a database where the dating industry will work together so that all the email addresses, all the names, the photos used by the scammers are put together that people are able to find them. So rather than just saying, okay, this person's a scammer, kick them off the site, actually get their details out there to help warn others, because education really is the key.
But isn't that kind of like almost a catch-22? It's kind of like saying, you're asking McDonald's, as you're coming up to the counter, to educate you on cholesterol and what it can do, or fat content and what it can do. So it's kind of, a dating site has to kind of walk a fine ground there, where they don't want you to come in as a new subscriber to a dating site and say, hey, watch for every person you're talking to because you could be scammed. Then you're more likely to say, all right, well, you know what, let's just forget this, I'll walk away from the dating site. So it kind of makes it it's an important issue, but at the same time it's a sensitive issue, isn't it?
Yeah, the thing is, every site is the same. Any site can be any site can have a scammer turn up on it. Doesn't matter if it's a free site or a paid site. It's all very well saying, oh, we're a paid site, the scammers won't be able to come to us. But the scammers do. They will have a genuine person to pay for their profile, or they will use a stolen credit card. So every site has the risk of having scammers on it. And that's a fact. It doesn't matter, you can't say, we're not going to have any scammers. All it needs is one scammer, and you've got a scammer problem. So making the people aware of it and making it transparent as well means that the people are more aware of the scammers. The scammers are less likely to get the victims on their site, because obviously the people are aware of the scams now, so they're not going to be caught up in it. So that site will become a bad place for the scammers to go, because they're not going to get any victims there. So by being open about it, the scammers are less likely to go to the site, because there's less chance of them actually catching somebody there.
Do you see any dating sites doing better than others in terms of flagging and catching their scammers?
There are some sites that are very good with it. I know Carrie Ann can give you the names of some. She's really, really into one that has a list, and several do this. They have a list of the scammers, and they'll post up the name they used, the email address they used, the IP address they used, and post up their details. So yes, some of them do it. Some of them just delete them, and some of them just leave them there. I mean, there are certain sites that, going back to baiting again, there are certain sites that baiters will go to because they know it's absolutely swarming with scammers. And if you go there, you will be able to pick up these scammers with no difficulty. And then there are other sites that we've tried, and we've had nothing. Because when one or two scammers come in, they manage to stay there, nothing's been done to prevent them. They'll say to their friends, go here, it's easy pickings. So more and more scammers will go to the site, and as more scammers go to the site, more people are going to see the scammers there, see these unrealistic profiles they've got, get the messages that they're sending, saying I've got this money that I want to send you, or I want to be with you on the second message, and go, this place has got loads of scammers on that, I don't want to be here. So I'd say it's a better option to be honest about it, say there are scammers out there, here's what to look out for. It's not just our site, it's every site. You know, look out for these signs. If you see them, contact us, and be just completely open, completely honest about it, because burying your head in the sand is going to do more bad than good.
And what can the dating sites do for you, for scam survivors, to help you guys better?
Again, it's down to getting the word out. I mean, I would love if every single dating site out there put a link to our site on there, but I know that's completely unrealistic. Just getting the word out there. You know, I would quite happily shut the site down tomorrow if I knew there were no more scammers out there. But the scammers are out there, so we have to be there. So getting that word out, I say it's going back to the same thing, it's getting the word out. You know, tell people there are scammers, these are what to look for. If they want to point them to us, then I'm certainly not going to say no. But so long as they're making people aware of the issue with scammers, the things to look out for, and I say they don't have to work together if they don't want to, I would quite happily set up a database where the dating sites could contact us, send us the details, and we'll put them in like a centralized database for everybody. You know, I don't know what kind of work it would involve, but I'd find somebody to do it, because getting that information out there is just so essential.
Wayne, I'm just speechless in what to say other than I applaud you and what your moderators do. You guys work tirelessly to protect victims from these scams, and so everyone I know in the business eschews this activity of scammers, and you guys work tirelessly all day long to help protect these people. And you know, on behalf of the industry, I want to thank you for everything you're doing.
No problem. As I say, if we can just protect one person from being scammed, it's all worthwhile.
Well, I look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks at iDate, and same deal with the conference. Let us know anything we can do to help, and
Okay.
I'd love to help. And the same thing with, you'll find with a lot of the dating CEOs, they want to help you as well.
There you go. So I'll see everybody there. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Wayne.
No problem.